Tonight is the 29th yard site of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And before we tuned in on Facebook, we had a mini Fabrengen already in more in-house Zoom, where we went through different aspects related to it, including, do we say Good Yom Tiv on a day like this, if it's a yard site? And we concluded that it has to do with how you feel. And in fact, as we will see when we speak about the Parsha, hopefully, that there's something special about saying Good Yom Tiv, right? That very phrase, Good Yom Tov, which is a bit redundant because good and Tov means the same thing. It means a good day, you know? Okay. Like we say double Tov. Like Tuesday, which we're coming from, which is when we say double Tov, double good, which is also related to the Parsha, not just the day of the week, as we'll see. Wow, everything's connected. That's what we do here. We find connections, like hyperlinking everything. The day we're in, the Parsha, the other aspects, themes of what we're learning, like especially on our overall theme of the materials having to do with the unique innovations of Hasidism, especially with when it's confronting the allegations against by the Snagdin. If we have time, we'll go into that later too. And it's all connected, you know. That's what Torah is. Torah teachings, it's not compartmentalized material, but it's like one long, just like the sea. You can't divide. Look at your globe. You'll see that all the seas are all connected. The Atlantic's connected to the Pacific, which is connected to the Indian Ocean, and all, you know, it's just one, it's just a matter of currents of how it flows from one area to the other. And all the trillions of drops are really all part of one body of water. And that's what Torah is. It's the sea of Torah, or the Siyam Talmud, we say. So it says, it's long like the land and wide like the sea. So it has both qualities. And it also, the depths of Torah going all the way down, you know, being that we're having a little bit more intimate night tonight. Both we're going to, you know, covering all the aforementioned topics, so to speak. I'm also open to just being more discursive, even more improv. For example, if people want to, we do want to discuss, if it's of people's interest, if they want to hear my personal memories, what it was like 29 years ago when the Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away this night, 29 years ago. I was around then. I was at Beth Israel Hospital when we were notified that the Rebbe passed away, and was around, you know, up to the funeral and other factoids. This isn't, you know, some of it is a little bit like a lump in the throat, and in only the, you know, in only, you know, no pun intended, not, you know, in the sense of malady, but you know, there's a little bit of sadness associated with it. But the fact is that, like the Rebbe would say, after the passing of his predecessor, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, that when the children, meaning the students, the spiritual descendants of the Rebbe are alive, meaning they're continuing with that, being on, you know, continuing in the noble work and ways. So then, then the Rebbe himself is alive, even after the physical departure. So the fact that we're entering the 30th year since the Rebbe's passing, that and things are, really have really incredibly not only persevered, continued, but really expanded. So that already shows that at a certain level the Rebbe is still, is alive. That's right. It's that we're embodying that energy. Still, it's not easy. First of all, I was in 770 last week, and I was reminiscing with the younger students in 770 what it was about that. I should say uneventful times, and I have to say, and when the Rebbe passed away, and one who's a meshachist, but what do you mean passing patira? Like, we don't use that word, almost. But then even he told me that same night he's going to the Oihel. He was on his way there to visit the graveside. So, meaning we don't emphasize the passing part. We could call it transitional state. And even the greatest meshachist still wants misses the Rebbe. Let's call it that. All right. And as I mentioned before we came up on Facebook, this is not a Lubavitcher program. We cover all ways of Judaism and all that, but firstly, Lubavitcher Rebbe is an important figure in Judaism, and just by the mere fact that if you just say the Rebbe without designating of what group, everyone assumes you mean Lubavitcher Rebbe. And secondly, it was my personal Rebbe. This is the only real Rebbe I know. I grew up with. So yes, I have a personal bias, and as I was mentioning earlier, the bulk of my learning of Chassidus and even other ways was directly from the Rebbe and Chassidus. So again, I just want to repeat here online full gratitude to the Rebbe and to Lubavitch and to the Chabad community for all of the nurturing and all that. And even if I may not fit perfectly the build of the Lubavitcher Sidisher Chabadnik, I still it's part of the core of my soul, and will always be with me. So yeah. So just for transparency, I'm biased that way. I mean, I do, in the past I have had certain criticisms about certain aspects thereof, still do in a way, but that's not for tonight. Tonight was just to commemorate the good and positive parts, and we'll just flow right into a certain idea or certain a calendrical. Like before we came on, I mentioned that this day Gimmel Tammuz had to, even before the Rebbe's passing, also had to do in Chabad history with the beginning of the liberation of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe from Soviet imprisonment, and he was almost executed in 1927. And it was on this night, 96 years ago, that he was released from prison and exiled to Siberia, and then he was freed altogether from that 10 days later, and then 3-4 months later, he was able to leave the Soviet Union. So it was the beginning of his freedom. That too is very interesting. But even before that, thousands of years before, Gimmel Tammuz has a very important significance, or it's actually in the Bible. Does anyone here know what happened to Gimmel Tammuz many years before? All right. It has to do, hint, with Joshua. Does that help anyone? Okay, so the answer is that I don't know the exact year.
Wasn't that when Yehoshua was freed by the Soviets?
That was Anatoly Sharansky. No. Or Yeshua. Close. No. Last week the Haftarah was about Joshua and the spies to Jericho, right? And which led to like the first conquering, which was Jericho. Then what happens? Several chapters later, maybe I'll show it to you in the actual Bible in the book of Joshua. I think I even opened it up somewhere. Let me find the one. So in short, it is it's the story of when Joshua, when they had the war in Givon, in the valley of Givon. Does this ring a bell with anyone? So what happened was that let's look at an actual Bible, okay? I think it's good to. Here we are. So so as you could see on your screen, this is after they conquered Ai already. And they had the big city of Givon to try to conquer. And then you had the 5 kings of Amori, of Amori in Jerusalem and Hebron and Yarmouth and all that, and they had a battle. And they went from Gilgal, and Yeshua came with all of his whole strong legion. And Hashem told Yeshua, "Don't be afraid from them, because your hand, I'm going to put them in your, I'm going to what's the word? Deliver them into your hands, right? And then." And he smote them, but it wasn't stopped. What happened was they were fighting in the outskirts of Givon, and then so Yeshua told God, they saw that they were still fighting and they still needed more time because once it would get dark, it would be hard to fully conquer them. And this is after also Hashem helped them by casting big stones from the sky, like hail. But that still was a mini miracle, but it wasn't enough. So Hashem prayed to God, or he almost commanded. He said, "Shemesh begivain daim." May the sun in Givon, may it stand. Daim means may be silent, meaning stop. And so and to let before the moon comes out. And so it was. The sun stood still. And that gave them ample time in the daylight to go. And right, and it says here the sun stood sky and it didn't set, and then they were able to go and conquer the Amorites. And as the pasuk continues, the verse says, "And there was no day like this before or after." So it was that, and they were delivered. So this happened on the 3rd of Tammuz, and I even remember the very charismatic head rabbi of Babish head rabbi of Australia when I was there in 1989 at the wedding. He gave a whole like bombastic in a good way speech at a wedding, but Shemesh begivain daim, that sun, basically saying that so too in the Babish, like the sun never sets on the British Empire type of theme. So too, the sun never sets, and And we could say the same thing, that the sun that never even, and that's what's very interesting, that even though Gimmel Tammuz is now passing the Lubavitch Rebbe, you could say that too, that the son of Lubavitch, the SUN of Lubavitch, also has not set, even though there was the physical passing. Moreover, like we know that Moshe and Moshe and Yeshua was the successor of Aaron, and Moshe was compared to the sun and Moshe to the moon, that by Yeshua saying that or with God's by supplicating to God to have and effectuating that the sun should not set, it's almost signifying that even that Moshe himself, even after his passing on the 7th of Adar, and even though now the Israelites are in the land of Israel, and Moshe was buried on the other side of the Jordan, but still Moshe is still alive and still with them, and helping them, and they're guiding the people. And that is so too, the leaders and the righteous, specifically great leaders like Moshe Rabbeinu, are immortal in that way. Continue. Now it's interesting. The last time that being that's Gimmel Tammuz, we'll share some teachings from the Lubavitch Rebbe, especially on the significance of the day and the Parsha. So actually, in the last Farbrengen gathering the Rebbe had for this week, that means in 1991, before he had a stroke, the Rebbe asked a very, what was great about the Rebbe's approach of learning is many a times he would ask very almost deceptively simple questions, right? So the Rebbe asked on this story with the sun being held up as a miracle, in order that they have daylight, sunlight, so they could conquer the enemy. So Rebbe asked a very obvious question. If Josh was asking for a miracle and God's doing a miracle, so why is the miracle to hold the sun up so they have the light to battle? It should be a greater miracle. Just create a miraculous way that they just beat the enemy. They don't even have to continue the battle at all, right? It's like saying you're going to make a miracle to keep the lights on so you can continue doing the battle. But a greater miracle would be if some great zap energy field came and just, like at the end of Lord of the Rings or something, just like totally obliterated the enemy, Wouldn't that be the greatest miracle? Like, what's going on here? Okay. So to answer this question, it's related to, the Rebbe asked the same thing about his own father-in-law. Why did it have to be that the redemption had to be in stages, from the 3rd Tammuz to the 12th Tammuz to leaving Sovdin? You should have just right away been one big miracle, be free. So too in our parsha, and not being that tonight's not such a linear night, so we'll share it this way. Let's do it this way. So just to give a very, for just a refreshing of what the parsha is like. It's interesting that our parsha, unlike, let's say, last week's parsha or others, where you have like multiple things happening in the one parsha, or even if there's one major concept, but there's some other elements related to it. Like last week wasn't just about the spies, even though that was the main narrative, but there's also things about the wood collector and tzitzis and challah and blah, blah, blah. But our parsha is more or less from beginning to end, more or less around the same theme. It's the theme of of Korach challenging leadership of Moshe. And Korach also wanted to be a leader, and specifically to be like the Kohen, to be the high priest, certainly take over his clan, right? Because it was his cousin, Tzafan, that was the head of his clan. Even though Tzafan came from the younger son, the younger brother of Amram, which was Uziel, and Taz came from Yitzhar. And so it's Korach claimed that he should be the head of his clan, or for that matter, he challenged the whole leadership of Aaron, Moshe, and all this, right? And there's a lot of details on what this challenge was and how to understand it. Time permitting, we'll go into it. So, so after that whole challenge, what happens? So Moshe falls on us. To make a long story short, he goes and he's also told by Hashem to go and bring together the fire on the copper shovel, so to speak, and the incense and the fire goes out and obliterate and burns up Korach and the 250 challengers that he had, because Korach got a whole group to challenge too. Dasan and Aviram, who were from the tribe of Reuven, because Reuven were encamped next to the Kahas camp, where Korach was from, and so on. And then they were obliterated, but it doesn't end there. What happens? The people, Israel, are now complaining again. Like, what's going on? Like, they're complaining, almost like defending the mutineers, the rebels, that they were killed off, which is in itself a strange twist in the story. And so then what happens? So then there's a plague comes out. And that is when Aaron goes with the incense and to stand between the living and the dead, and shows through the powers of his prayer and incense that it selects those who are challenging their leadership in that way, and brings to an end those, and others stay alive. That's the Magefa Bateyatza, and right, that's the plague, so to speak. And Aaron finishes the plague. So basically, the plague takes on over the people and is going to obliterate everyone. But then Aaron uses his incense technique, and that saves the people, the majority of the people, and only 17,000 plus are come to an appearance. Hi, Dove. Hi. Guten, or so to speak, Guten Gimmel Tammuz. All right. So then, after that, then Hashem says that now we got to establish. So it's clear to everyone that Aaron is the real leader here. And therefore, may all the heads of the 12 tribes bring their staffs and bring them together and put it in front of the holies and give it overnight, see what happens to it. And lo and behold, all the other 11, nothing happens to them, but Aaron's staff begins blossoming with the blossom and the flowerings of almonds, like from an almond tree. And if anyone's seen almonds blossom, which I have, if you go out in Northern California, in the Central Valley, I've been to almond orchards where as far as the eye can see, there's almonds upon almonds, and there are these beautiful white flowers come out, and they blossom out, and And they show, and this was the sign that really that God's on Aaron's side, so to speak. Right? And Korach mata Aaron, as the pasuk says. So now, why specifically almonds? So it's brought down because almonds are the Gemara even has, it's one of the quickest blossoming trees. It takes just 21 days. So it's showing, like the word for in Hebrew for almond is shaket, shkedin, like the word from shkida, which means being diligent or being quick, expeditious. So it's also showing that Aaron is both the source of all blessings, like giving fruit and giving blossoming, but also in the quickest way, because that's the uniqueness of the blessings of the Kohen priests, both that they could channel the blessings, like Rach Hashem Mishmerach, as we know, and from the highest levels to the lowest levels, and also in the quickest ways, without any withholding from, because usually the divine flow has to go through all the levels, and each stage in each of the worlds, it takes it almost needs to pause from world to world, so to speak. But when the Kohen, especially the high priest like Aaron, is channeling, then it's the super express lane of blessing coming down. So that was the great significance of it being specifically almonds, blossoming, and like sprouting. Now note, it wasn't like almonds just popped up on Aaron's staff, but it was actually went from nothing to germination and blossoming and sprouting. The whole process of growth went on, but just in really quick and almost like in super fast motion. Okay, like those nature cameras where they have the camera on the flower blossoming over weeks, and then they do it in very high speed, and it looks like in 10 seconds you just see it sprout, right, or blossom, something like that, just overnight instead of 21 days, right? Fast motion camera almost, right? So that was a beautiful thing. So here too, in this Fabring in 1991, the Rebbe asked here too, why was the miracle done? It's already being a miracle. Hey, welcome, Yoshev Reish. I'm honored and humbled that we have such a prestigious individual in our midst. The Yoshev Reish of what, we don't know, but as long as you're the Yoshev Reish of whatever, or your owner, whatever organization you're running, very, very, very sweet. Thank you for representing. I'm Yeshiv Lamata, Yeshiv Acher. Okay, so Yoshev Reish is maybe also, maybe you're signifying that Korach wanted to be the Yoshev Reish over Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron. Who knows? Okay, so here too, the Rebbe asked, if it was to show quickness and all that, so the miracle should just been that just almonds appear right away on the staff. Why did it have to be that actually went through the whole growth process, albeit in very, in high speed to there? It should just to begin with just be almonds sprouting, right? So this okay, so I'll share with you the Rebbe's answer here, and we'll see how we could plug it into other parts of the parsha. So now, when we speak about miracles, there's two ways to deal with miracles. One is a miracle that is totally supernatural, meaning that is totally disconnected from anything of nature, right? Meaning that even when the miracle happens, and miracles are happening in our physical world, but it has not integrated fully and permeated rather into the very laws of nature itself. That's one way of it, and we'll give examples soon. That's one way of miracle. The other way of miracle is that it's a miracle, yet this miracle it does affect through and through into even in nature itself. There's in other places in Chassidus, we speak about something that's totally supernatural. Then there's ness that is melubash b'teva. There's ness that's above nature, and then there's ness that's embodied into nature. That's one way to look at it. But another way is it a miracle that just is, even when it's in nature, it doesn't fully affect nature? Or is it a miracle that totally is part of the nature itself? For example, you could go back to the story of Egypt. There was the miracle of the first of the plagues, of the water turning into blood. So there, the miracle was that water was water. Then there was a superimposed miracle upon the water, like an added element to the water, which made it into blood, right? So now, when the plague ended, what happened? Was there another miracle to turn it back from blood to water? No. All what happened was that the miracle layer that was added to the water that made the blood was removed. And once that was removed, then the water automatically turned, and the blood automatically turned back to water. Okay. Then there was another miracle. There was the miracle, if you remember, that Moshe put his hands into his robe, took it out, and it was like white, like leprosy, right? Saras. But as the verse said, reverse it, to come back to normal, it says he had to put his hand back in. Meaning there was a second miracle that happened to reverse that back. Okay? So why? Because again, in the case of water turning to blood, it was just a miraculous energy power was an added element to the water to make it blood. Whereas with the hand turning white of leprosy, the miracle permeated within the flesh and skin of Moses' arm, and till the hand itself was, and the nature of the hand itself was leprosy. And therefore there needed to be a second miracle to make it back into a healthy hand. Just like if someone's hand would have been just by nature had leprosy, and then it would be a miracle to make it to heal it, so too Moshe's hand. Okay, so these are the two ways to look at the way that a miracle itself manifests in nature. Okay, in fact, we know, let's say, like the splitting of the Red Sea too. It says that that's the whole discussion was when the water when after it was split, when it returned down to water and drowned the Egyptians, was it returning to its original state of liquefied water? Or rather, right? Yes, that's true. But actually there was also, even when it was split, it was also going back to an original embedded element, what it was created with from day one, that it will split in 2,448 years later, right? So we see that there's this that these are the two, that this is even that the affectation of miracle on nature is could be seen as either imposed, that means not fully part and parcel of nature, or that the miracle becomes the very same element of the nature itself. Okay. So now, which is a greater miracle? Let me ask. On the one hand, you could say that the miracle that's imposed upon nature is greater because it's not, let's say, it hasn't like squeezed itself into the limitations of nature to be. So there's still more of a supernatural aura to it, right? That therefore, there's more of a wow about it. That's miraculous. Even when it's in nature, there's a sensation that is beyond nature. True, there is something beautiful. However, in a way, when the nature becomes when the miracle becomes part and part of nature, there's two added elements. First of all, it is showing that the divine is that even the most supernatural, transcendent elements of the divine can unite together with the most finite, unlimited. And therefore, that where does something come? Like how can this be? It seems contradictory. You have the infinite and the finite. When I said infinite is imposed on the finite, but really, essentially, they're two separate entities. They're just a very close, intimate pairing. So, okay, so I say, all right. So I say, yeah, true that they're together. They're joined together, but still, this is supernatural. That's natural. But if I say that the supernatural is now in the natural and part and parcel of it, how is that possible? It's self-contradictory. Finite and infinite is same one. Where can that happen? That's only from the very essence of the divine, which is beyond all finite and infinite, as we've spoken about in the past. That really the essence of the divine, of Hashem, is not biased to be more divine, if it's infinite than finite, that they're both almost more or less co-equal expressions of the essence of the divine. And therefore, all the more so that the essence of Hashem is most expressed when the infinite and finite are one, are literally one and the same together. Okay, that's point number one. That's more almost like on an ontological level, that they're bringing out that's more of a fusion, more than just that it's expression that it is all one. Secondly, for us, it gives us a greater, deeper connection, being that we are physical beings in this natural, we run by the laws of nature. So therefore, when we say that the miraculous becomes one and the same as nature, then we're saying that the miraculous has loud siren. Sorry then. All right. City life, All right. So when I say that the miracle is in nature, it means that we are now directly connected, are also embody fully the most supernatural states in our natural state, and that gives us a direct connection, linkage to the most sublime states of divinity. And in fact, the whole world is created like this, right? And this is another great thing Rebbe said at Fabring, and it reminds me, even when I was younger, when I was like 14 years old, I remember the Rebbe speaking about this, and it really blew my mind then. that really, really God is Kol Yachol, the words. God is all, can do anything, all possible. So in the second part of Tanya, Shayich Ramuna, the first Chabad Rebbe goes and explains that God manifests in the world every moment. It's not that the world was created 5,783 years ago plus, and then now it's on auto drive. Rather, every moment, second, even now, is as if it's the first second of all creation, ex nihilo, it's called, out of nothing. And that the divine energy is embodied. It both creates every second, like the beginning of Genesis, and is totally embodied in all physicality. But really, if God is of all possible beings, like, why is God limited to follow these laws of logic that the only way something can exist is by having its cause embodied? God could work beyond these laws of what we perceive as logical or almost necessary method of cause and effect and creation. Maybe, if God really wanted to, he could have created the world, then, day one creation, and just let it go as it is. And there are even for certain theological, philosophical streams that would say things like this, like deism and such. What is this necessity that there should be the creation and embodiment of the divine every second, every moment, right? And again, that and the fact that we have all of these great rational, philosophical, logical arguments why it has to be so, that itself, these laws of logic are themselves created by God. So the same God could have made other laws of reasoning that it didn't have to be like this. Right? There's a bit of a meta argument here, but that's the point. So what is the answer? The answer is true. God could have. Welcome, Dan. You're here. We're all here. Great. But the reason why there is the manifestation of the divine in every second moment, as if it's the first second of all of existence, is precisely to make this point that we were saying before, that the most miraculous, most sublime of the divine is intimate with us in a most imminent way, that becomes the most personal relationship we have. That when we look at the apple on the table or the sun in the sky and all that, it's not something that, like they say, the light that we see of a star sometimes could have already been dead from millions of years ago, and we're just getting the light now. But no, this is divine presence we're looking at and having a contact with in this very present instant. That's the point. That we have deep relationship, because everything that God created is not only, it's both for God's own honor, meaning revealed for us, in order that we serve, to have that reciprocal response in the deepest, most intimate way, and in a way that when we do our holy work, we reveal that there is the divine in everything that we do, and all of even physical phenomena. That's the point. That within our nature and the laws thereof, within there is the most highest miraculous, the divine states. Okay? So now, going back to the story of Joshua holding the sun still. And we asked, why not just make the miracle, just beating up the whole army right the bat, winning the battle right away? But no. The whole point was that to bring the miraculous into nature. So, in order to do that, God did activate a miracle, holding the sun, keeping the lights on, so to speak, that the sun keep on shining. But at the same time, the people had to still fight. And true, they even had assistance with stones flying from that sky and on and on. But ultimately, they had to show that miracle is the highest miracle is when it is utilized, it serves to bring out and expresses itself through the most natural states of affairs. Okay, through actual, through the battle itself. So too with Aaron's staff. Doesn't suffice just to show the miracle of almond sprouting, but we have to show that even this miracle of the almond sprouting and blossoming, it went through the natural course of germination and sprouting, like a regular almond branch. Only what? With the miraculous element of it being in high speed. Okay. So too, the previous Rebbe's procession, the process and the gradation of his liberation wasn't just right away miracle overnight, but went through the bureaucracy even of the Soviet Union in all its stages, to bring out the miracle, to show that even in the physical, that the miracle is the highest state of miracle is expressed when it's within, when it operates through the steps of and the process of nature. Okay, so this is a great lesson also for us, that not to just expect things, great miracles overnight. And yes, when miracles are overnight, but at the same time, we wanted the best of miracles are when it comes through in the most and manifested within our natural realms. And therefore, that's the highest state. Now with this, let's see how we could plug this in also to other parts of the Parsha. We spoke before about, we already gave it an overall description of the story with Korach, beginning of our Parsha. So the truth is like this. If you research, we look into what the actual chronology of events of when Aaron and Moshe were designated as leaders and yada yada, that happened, like specifically Tzafan to be the head of the tribe of Kahas, the subgroup of Kahas, from Levites and all that. That actually happened before the whole story of the spies. Right, the spies happened year 2, as we know, in like the end of Sivan, which is like these days. We're in the middle of the 40 days when they were scouting Canaan. But the whole thing with Moshe and Aaron, all that was months earlier. So the question is, right? So the end of the story of the spies was Tisha B'Av, right? That's when it all went down, when they returned. And then, so if we read the Torah chronologically, it was after the story of the spies and Tisha B'Av, that is when the Korach started challenging the leadership. But if Korach already knew that Moshe and Aaron are running things earlier, why did he wait till after the story of the spies to bring up his challenge? Okay, very, very again, a very basic question that not many people bring up, but the Rebbe did, and the Rebbe actually answered this in a beautiful way. And in a way, like we've been learning from the beginning from the book of Bamidbar already, from the first parsha of the book of Bamidbar, how all the parshas are linked, and it's one narrative going throughout, right? Just like we read last week's parsha of the story of the spies is a continuation from the story with Miriam's. Speaking about her brother Moshe, on, and that Baloscha is a continuation from Nassau and all that. So too, the story of Korach and his complaint is that what was Korach saying? Korach saying is, why do we have who, like almost like if you ever watched "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" by the Coen brothers. They'll say, who elected you leader of this outfit? He's telling Moshe, right? Like you know, this challenge to leadership is coming up to Korach precisely as a repercussion and continuation from the story of the spies. Right? Why? What was the story of the spies? The story of the spies was, we spoke about this at length last week, and the spies said, let us stay. Why do we have to go into the Holy Land where we're going to have to work the land, right, in Canaan and Israel, and be involved with physicality, plowing, and growing, and animals, blah, blah, blah. Let us stay in the spiritual desert where everything's provided for us, manna, clothes, and sky, and just stay in a state of pure spiritual bliss. Why be involved in the physical world, right? And what did we answer last week? That's true. This is a very lofty way to be, but it's only for select few, for the ultra righteous tzaddikim. But the super majority of us, our way of the Beinoni, the average individuals, is to be involved in the physical. In fact, that is the whole aim of us being on the physical planet Earth, is to work and reveal through the physical that everything is divine, or even the spiritual through the physical. That is the lesson, right, of last week's parsha. So now, in response to that, now Korach comes with his complaint. So the spies just taught us that it's not about how great spiritual and kavanah we had, or how much we could learn Torah, depths and all that, but it's about physical action, mitzvah, physical in the physical world. If so, as a physicality, we're all equal, right? When is there differences between people based on their intelligence, how much they learn, how much they feel, and on and on. But when it comes to physical acts, mitzvah, everyone's equal. Like the same way you give charity, the same way you put on tefillin, the same way you light Shabbos candles, the same way you shake a little bit esrog. We're all the same. So if the whole point is to be in the physical world and be in a way that we're all the same, if so, why do we have hierarchy? Why do we have Moshes? Why do we have that Moshe is the highest, and where Aaron is the high priest, and so on and so forth? We should all be totally equal, right? What does this remind you of a bit? Reminds you of the whole debate of what, like, communism versus other more right, hierarchical structures. This is what the radical socialist, or more specifically communism, was into. Equality, we're all equal. And but guess what? Even there was recognition. They needed someone to run this this equality. So that's why also, because you could ask, if Korach was saying that everything is equal, we're all co-equal when it comes to doing physical mitzvah and all that. So why is Korach challenging and wants to be the head himself? Isn't he self-contradicting himself? So that's actually part of his argument, because he was saying like this, like almost like early, like Lenin would have said, like, it's true, we're all co-equal, but you need someone to run this co-equality. But what does that mean? That is, you have relational hierarchy, but that makes sense, because you need someone that's what was the Roman model of the Senate? First amongst equals, right? So that makes somewhat sense. So, right, because for practical reasons, if you can't run things only by 100% consensus, there'll be no focus and no anything. So you need someone at least to take some nominal charge, or at least to recognize that's, even if he's a bit higher than everyone else, or there's some relational aspect. But Moshe was more than that. Moshe wasn't just like a teacher to a student, where we're saying that there's a vertical supremacy to the teacher in this area of transmission of knowledge, let's say, teaching. Moshe, in fact, was seen as a king. There's more than one, it's brought down in different places. We say, Vahibishur Melech, that Moshe was viewed as actually, the definition of king in Jewish sources is not just happens to be the CEO, like a CEO of a company, or just happens to be the custodian of running things, but it's existential. As we say in Hebrew, it's be'etzem higher. It's on a whole other incomparable level of a category. It's totally like almost like the difference between finite and infinite, right? A subject to a king. That's an old school relationship of the people are subjects to the king. It was like there was a vast gap between the two, and therefore also it's brought down in the Gemara Talmud that even if a person shows disrespect to the king, like by waving or doing something, let's call it swapping a fly in the king's presence, even that's not showing any actual direct contesting the king's authority, but still it's viewed as disrespectful, and the king technically could take the most severe of punishments, right? Because it's because a king is on a whole other level. It's like existentially higher in absolute ways, not just relational or subjective ways. So that was Korach's point, argument. That okay, so maybe we needed someone to run things, but it shouldn't be in a state of like total of such absolute leadership. Like almost saying, get off, like come down from your high horse, so to speak. Because if the whole point is ultimately to be to be down here on earth in a way that of the most equal common denominator of all, then we should all be in that state, right? So Why this whole thing of, like, remember we said Naseis Rosh a few parts ago, that Moshe was like on a whole other level of height. So the answer to this is, and the response that Moshe had to Korach, to his argument, is like this. Let's look at, actually, let me just show in the Chumash. I think would be all right. First, so here, so again, let's just read a little bit of the Parsha. Anyway, it's good to, and I'll just riff off some stuff as we go along. Vayikach Korach took. What does it mean? He took. So it says what it means. He persuaded with words. Kicha b'dvarim, with words. He had the art of persuasion. That he convinced others, primarily 250 others, and not just regular people, so like prestigious princes of the people, to go on his mutiny. Yeah, and they said to, like, you Moshe and Aaron, Moshe, why you make yourself holier than thou? Everyone's holy, like we just said. We all are co-equal when it comes to bring the holiness out of the physical mitzvah. And Hashem is amongst Hashem. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is the name of God that manifests into, bringing together even in those worlds. Why are you making yourself higher? So then it says, Vayishva Moshe heard Vayipol upon it, he fell on his face. Even before, this is a great lesson, even before everything, he fell on his face. Even before he answered. What does that mean? That means
it's an echo from last week's Parsha.
What with the 13 attributes? Is that what you mean? No.
When he and Aaron both fell on their faces.
Right. When they were also there. Very good. Yes. But falling on the face here also is somewhat related. Why? Because this is since that what is Korach complaining to Moshe? Why are you making yourself so great? Right? Now, what is Moshe?
Oh, allow again, allow.
Wait, let me see.
Okay, wait now.
Okay, and Johnny, I had to mute you because I was hearing feedback. Oh, who's this, Johnny? Johnny Cocoa Pops? Johnny Jimenez. Very cool. With the cap. Holy brother. All right. Thanks for joining in. Yeah, we got we're representing tonight. Great. So Korach is challenging Moshe for holding himself bigger, meaning of being greater than himself. What is the one main characteristic we apply to Moshe, as we had it a couple of parshas ago, that he's Moshe anav mi'od mikol ha'adam asher b'nei adam. He's the most humble person. So Moshe here is Korach telling him, why are you holding yourself so big? So before anything, he has to fall on his face, meaning he has to go back and search in himself and express and actually physically show that really he is in this humble state. Like, ironically, when the humble person is told you're not humble, that brings out in him even more humility. You know what I mean? To really check, maybe he's not, how can I be called humble? I mean, can we be called as egotistical? Maybe I am egotistical. It only comes through humility that someone would question their own humility. You understand? Does that make sense? That's the true humility. So, in fact, it's a beautiful story. I think it's I think it's with the Chayz of Lublin that that once there was Misnag Shirav in his town, in Lublin, I suppose. And he would always start up a challenge to Lublin, the Chayz Lublin. He would say, look, what are you holding yourself so holy? You're such a Rebbe. We all know who you are. You're just another guy. What? Just stop all this nonsense, making yourself such a Rebbe, tzaddik, Rebbe. You're not, So Lublin said, you're right. Out of his humility, the Chayza said, you're right. What should I do? So the Rav said, you know what you should do? Next time your Hasidim come to shul and you're all around, gathered, just go up on the bimah, make an announcement. Everyone just know, really, I'm just such a charlatan. I'm not such a tzaddik as everyone thinks I am. And that's it, just tell everyone openly that you're not. So, it's a great idea. So it was. So next time, all Chassidim come to shul, Chayza gets up. He said, I'm sorry to blow my cover to everyone. Just know all these years I've been faking it. I'm not such a holy yid. I'm not such a big tzaddik. I don't know why everyone's following me. So that game, give up. All the Chassidim hear this. They go, oh, now he's a real tzaddik. It's almost like that Monty Python line from the Life of Brian. Only the true Messiah would say he's not really the Messiah, right? Then all the more so, that's the proof. So before you know it, the Chayzer became even more popular. He has more Chassidim running to him. The Misnagid Rav sees it, and he's like, he's beside himself. So next time he sees the Chayzer, he said, I think it's more his name, Yaakov Yosef. Look, obviously it's not worse. So now you have to go to shul next time and tell everyone that you are a tzaddik. Tell them openly you're a tzaddik, and that way they won't respect you anymore because they'll think you're egotistic. Which the Chayzer responded, Rabbi Yid, I'm willing to say whatever, but I can't lie anymore. A lie I won't say, that I'm a tzaddik. You know what I mean? So same thing in a way, like Moshe Rabbeinu is being challenged that you're a tzaddik, don't worry, you're holding yourself a tzaddik, come out. So he has to fall on his face there. Similarly, there's a story actually from the. By the way, another story of the Chayza, it's related. It's a story of I don't know if it was the same Rav or not. He comes to the Chayza and he says, Chayza, why is it that I'm a big Talmud Chacham, I want to learn so much, everything, but no one comes to me. But you're not known for your great learning, but still everyone comes to running to you. What do you have that I don't have, right? To which the Chayzer responded, it's a very good question. Very good question. I don't know either, but I think the answer is because your question is, why doesn't everyone come to you? My question is, why does everyone come to me? So that's the reason why people come to me. Because I don't know why people come to me. I don't feel worthy people should come to me. So maybe that's the reason why they're coming to me. Whereas you want people to come to you and think they should come to you. Therefore, that's why they're not coming to you. You understand? So this is the whole leadership reverse psychology related to this. So too, they say about the Alter Rebbe, but once also, Misnagid came to him, says, what's this whole thing? You're holding yourself as a holy Rebbe. You have all these great assistants and a whole court. Don't. What are you holding yourself so big? Have a whole big entourage. Maybe just be a Parshat. So the Alter Rebbe heard this, and he felt like he put his hand on his shoulder. It was known sometimes Alter Rebbe would get into meditation, he put his head down for a while in deep thought, and then he picked his head up, and he said, "Yeah," he gave an answer. He said, "Why? The head. We all humans. We're connected head and body, right? But still, so it's one part of the same, for big form. Our necks connect, but still, when it comes to clothing, we unless you're wearing a hoodie, they didn't have hoodies back in the day, but usually separate things. We wear a suit shirt for your body, and then a separate piece of clothing for the head. Why is that? Because even though it's the one, but the head is still something more unique that's given more designation. So he was implying, being that he's the leader of his community, therefore, yeah. So this was enough of an answer for this misnagid. Good. So the Alter Rebbe's son, Rebbe Dave Bed, who became later the Mitzvah Rebbe, heard the answer of his father. He says, Tati, that's a great answer. Speaking of a hat, right? Jimmy and Johnny is showing us. Yeah, salute. Yeah, baby. How many stars you got on that? Or you have space for the stars? Let's pin you. 220 West. Oh, man. Oh, you're a doorman? 220 West 93rd. I know where that is. As a former Upper West Sider, certainly. That's yep.
He's actually a friend of mine whom I invited.
Awesome. Welcome.
Yep, I just met him. I passed by his building a few minutes ago when I showed it to him and sent it to him. And
Great.
Yes.
Everyone's welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, we have from the lobby to the penthouse. Everyone. Right. Yeah. So he said. So he said, Tati, like, okay, great answer, but tell me, why did you put your head down before you answer? So he said like this. He said that because I was thinking about this actually our Parshat, where it says that Moshe fell, right, put his head down before he answered Korach. Like, why didn't Moshe just answer right? Why did he pull up? Because Moshe was thinking like this: everything that maybe Korach's, allegation against him is a divine, that he's a shliach from above, from Hashem, and that there's validity to Korach's allegation, right? And that Korach means it for holy purposes, and he's actually just channeling the divine message to him that Moshe really shouldn't be on incomparably at a higher, existentially higher state from everyone else. Maybe there's some like holy validity to it. So therefore, the first thing is Moshe had to fall down, had to think. Is Korach's art claim coming from holiness or not? And only after processing it and he realizing that no, that really it's that there's that as much as Moshe was the most humble of people, but still there is a place for Moshe to be Moshe, to be the almost king-like leader of the people, and as we'll soon see why, and to that, and therefore Moshe knew that Korach's claim was not coming from a holy place, and only then he could answer, as we will soon see what Moshe answers. So the Alter Rebbe said he had to go through that similar process before he answered the misnagid. Okay, so there we got the inner, the inner deeper expression, meaning of the details of this dialectic between Korach and Moshe. Moreover, as we're on, since we're on the subject, before we get to Moshe's response to Korach. Korach is actually also coming from, his challenge is because he's coming from a place of argumentation, okay, from division, okay, from as the Targum, the Aramaic translation of the word Vayikach, Korach took the Ispalik and he split. In Hebrew, splitting. That's the irony, that Korach was claiming that he wants everyone to be one co-equal, yet he was creating division. Not understanding that true unity of people is not that everyone is exactly co-equal, just carbon copies of each other. But we do have a certain, everyone has their unique tasks, their unique designated ways of expressing it and being whole. Like our very bodies. We are not just one head from head to toe. We're not just a hand, but we have different parts to our body, right? Obviously. Eyes, ears, nose, and it's all the limbs and parts of us in one collective and symbiotic interactive body that makes us a functional and being. And there's the heads, the feet, and all that, but it's the same body. But each limb has its unique designation and quality. So too, as we know, the people are known as Kema Shlema, whole entity, and there's the people, those are like the heads, those like the hearts, those like the hands, those like the feet. If you ever watched the silent movie, famous movie called Metropolis in the 1920s, and the theme is that there's the people of the head, people of the hands, people of the heart, and so on and so forth. So, and we need everyone. Like it says at the end of Chumash, when the heads of the tribes to the water carriers and the wood choppers, they're all necessary. And that works in all civil societies. We cannot all be just car mechanics, Everyone has to do what they are, and because we all have our unique, both born innate talents and ways that we develop to contribute to the greater whole, right? So too. So ironically, it's through the individuation of society that we create the whole holism of society and the healthy functionality of society. In other words, be proud of whatever job we possess, and just in bottom line, number one, find what best fits us both for our individual talents and our and love, interest in pursuit of our career and activity of life, and in a way that's not just in a selfish way, but a way that also is open channels to contribute to the greater whole, right, society. And that's the best way, when we all be the best of who we are, not when we try to be some other type of person. No, be the best that we can be. All right. So that's why we have the different tribes. We have the Kohens, the Levites, the different tribes, Reuben, Shimon, and Baba, etc., etc. Different tasks, and that is what the Korach was unaware of. That, ironically, by him claiming that everyone's equal, he was actually bringing division, because that's almost impossible. Everyone do the same exact job, and then in fact that would lead to arguments, both right, both within. Everyone's going to want to try to be and do the same thing, and no one will be doing other things, right? That's why, in fact, it says in the Mishnah that an argument that is not for argument for the sake of heaven is like Hillel, Shammai, and Hillel in studying Torah when they were debating in Torah, right? What is the argument not for the sake of heaven? That is like Korach, the Choladasa, Korach and his whole tribe. The question is, if it's the argument of Korach was not with the old tribe. It was Korach was with Moshe. The Mishnah should have said the argument of Korach and Moshe. But no, Korach and his old tribe. It's teaching us two things. First of all, that Korach's argument was one way. It wasn't Moshe reciprocating, arguing back to Moshe. Korach. It was Korach was just pushing his argument, trying to bait Moshe into the argument. But Moshe was smart enough not to fall for it. That's A. B, that Korach's approach to his argument, and the way we know it wasn't for the sake of heaven, was ultimately they started infighting. That the argument just splintered the people within, all the 250 and so on, right? Because again, we all cannot be the same. Excuse me. Yeah. So that, and there's gonna be some more points to this. What is Korach? The nature of Korach. I just want to get to another point, and then maybe we'll loop back to Korach a little bit more. So let's go to what was Moshe's answer. Oh, by the way, this whole thing is splitting. Just so you know that Naim Elimelech, the argument of Korach is the spalling. The splitting is actually, he says, goes back. It goes back to the very division of all of existence. When God split the waters at the beginning of creation and to create the sky, the imadim and mayim lamayim, right? The upper waters, lower waters, the sky. They were the first time we have the word imavdil, the split. And that evolved all the way down, which incidentally is why on day 2, the word kitov is not there, because it was the beginning of division, splits. Because and that too, by the way, is connected to the name Korach. Korach also can mean ice. What is ice? Ice is the coalescing of water. Right? When water, we were speaking earlier how all the seas are connected, and this one, and the nature of water is to unify with other water. Ice sort of hardens and makes separation, in fact. So that's what Korach was. He's also cooling off the passion of the people for Moshe too, and all, right? Which is ironic. Therefore, his punishment was being the fire coming out, burning out. Also, the word Korach is related to the word of bald. Bald is also a way of separating one's. You have a bald spot on top of your head, right? Separating the mass of hair. Okay. So we see that Korach is this whole point of creating in the name of unity, he's actually creating division, right? So what is Moshe's response to all this, as we'll see, is no. He says the very opposite. Moshe says no. That in the name of division, we create unity. The very opposite purpose. Let's see. Back to Parshat. So after he falls on his face, Moshe says, let's read it a bit more. And Moshe tells Korach, and say, in the morning, like this was like daytime, and he says, let's sleep on it overnight, so to speak, and in the morning, tomorrow morning, we will know who is right, if you, Korach, are right, or I am right. How? Based on bringing a certain offering with the metal, with the incense offering, and see whose offering God accepts, and then we'll know. That will be the litmus test, and who does God have on their side, and that's what they do. And let Korach take the incense, and we'll see tomorrow. right? That's what actually God, right, also supports. And then it says, continue, that Moshe told Korach, listen, guys, hala'at bikem, is it, like he says in English, is but a small thing unto you. This small that you're already Levites. You're already designated as separated from the people. And to serve, and you've already been given the high honor of serving and in the tabernacle, in the Mishkan. So isn't that enough, right? And that you should bring that, and now you want even more. You want to be the top cats, right? So why are you challenging me and Aaron, right? And so here again, you see that Moshe is actually twofold. First of all, he's pointing out already that there is designations, different types of delegated tasks or even core distinctions between the people of different tribes, and that Levites do have a special place, greater quote unquote people, and there are, and the word again, hivdil, separate. But here hivdil is in a good way to bring up something greater, as we'll see. Moreover, he says, and this is a question, he says to wait in the morning to answer. So the question is, what's this thing to wait to the next day? Why don't they just do it right away? So Rashi answers, in other words, why don't they just make the incense challenge right away? Why do they have to wait for another day? So Rashi gives two answers. One is to give them the time to do tshuva, right? And so give them overnight, and then they could see that if they will come back to their senses, and that's another answer. Rashi is because Moshe was trying to point out, just like there is, that there is a clear and everyone agrees that there's the separation between day and night, like we say, vayi erev vayi boker, right? That night is night and day is day. Never the twain shall be the same. So too, there's the differences between Moshe and Aaron and the people is just much of an existential division, so to speak. And for that matter, even between all the Levites and the people, right? To which the Rebbe asks, well, even so, why wait the whole night into the next morning? Why not just go from day to night? It's daytime, right? So twofold. If it's to do tshuva could be done in one split second. You don't have to wait another 12 hours to do tshuva. So they should be given a short time, and then hopefully that they do it right away. What's the stretching it out of? A. B, if it's to make the distinction that there's a division, just like there's a difference between day and night, so too there's a difference between the leaders and the people. So to just go from day to night, what do you have to go all the way to the next morning? Which the Rebbe explains a very deep lesson. And this is in a way also connected to what we were learning last week about when we were learning in the Tammuz Yaakov Yosef about Chassidus. And that is, night means darkness, obviously, it's dark, right? Day is when things are bright. So there's two ways that we could serve the Creator. One is that we'll just do what we got to do just because it has to be done, regardless of what state we're in, right? Like we were saying before, Korach's claim is, it's just about action. It's just about physical deeds, doing. not about how we feel or how we think or anything, kavana or feeling. Just the whole point is we're co-equal just in doing. If it's co-equal as doing, then you could do it in any state, even in the dark, right? And who cares if things are quote unquote illuminated, shining, bright, in a revealed state, right? Think about it. You have a diamond. A diamond, whether it's covered with mud or not, it's still a diamond, right? It doesn't lose its value. Only what? For us, it's not shining, glittering, but the diamond remains, it's full, and what it is. It doesn't change just because it's covered with mud. So too, Korach's claim was, if it's all about action, then why should we need to do our actions in mitzvot in a way that they illuminate, have to be bright? Let us just do a mitzvah, even if we don't have our full intention in it, full feeling in it, etc., etc. It's good enough because it's all about the physical world, right? It's a good time in a way. But no, this is the answer that Moshe is responding to Korach. He said, you think that's only just to do, even in the dark, but no. Ultimately, it's not just about doing, but it's also about presentation and appearance, and to making it bright, to reveal, right? So in parlance of Chassidus, it means not just to draw the essence of God into the physical world, but then to make the physical world, to reveal the essence in the physical too, that it should shine too. Okay? So therefore, it's like it's brought down in Chassidus. It was saying that the telos, the ultimate, the idea of chachma, wisdom is tshuva and ma'asim tovim, meaning we're studying, not just study, but it's in order to bring us to tshuva and ma'asim tovim, good deeds. The question is, why is it called ma'asim tovim? It should be called tshuva and mitzvah. So the answer is, it's not just enough to do mitzvah, but the mitzvah has to be in a way of a ma'asim tovim. What's tov? Tov is good. What does good mean? And it's obvious, open, revealed. It's like we say, again, going back to the days of creation, or that vayara Elokim or kitov, the God, so the light is good, right? That shining, that's what makes it good. And like we said, that on day 2, being that it's speaking about the vision of the splitting, and in fact, it's a continuation from the choshech hapnei tahom, the darkness. So it's not good yet. There's no good. It's only day 3, when that it comes out. Then we start saying it's tov l'shamayim, v'tov, double tov, good for heaven and for beings, because and then that follows the day 4 with the illuminations. So too, right? That, by the way, that's also why maybe that's why we say good Yom Tiv. We were talking about before. We should say good Yom Tiv. We give Tammuz or not. That's the point. We say good Yom Tov. That's the whole point. Boker, daytime. Yom, that is a time of light, of reveal. The sun is out. That's the whole point. That not to just do whatever we're supposed to do when it's in the dark, nighttime when it's dark. But the whole point is to bring it to the morning when it's shining. And that's what Moshe was saying to Korach. You think that just to do regardless of whether it's shining, even if it's dark, but no. Ultimately, we need both. Not just to act, which is the lesson, just to do a mitzvah, which is a lesson from Meraglim, but that's our Parshat now. Moshe's response to Korach is, even when we're told just to do that it's mainly about the Maisa Ha'ikar, about doing deed, but even that has to be infused with illumination, meaning with putting our full heart in it, our full kavana in it, and so on. And then we have both elements, both the action and kavana. Okay, so that's why it's good Yom Tov, and why we're doubling it, good and Tov. It's day, light, and that makes it Tov, good. And that's and in a way that is again the link with Gimmel Tammuz, which was the day when Joshua kept the sun still shining in the sky, that it shouldn't be nighttime. That because the other miracle God could have made is that just let the sun set and they'll be able to battle in the dark too and win. But no, God wanted the sun to remain shining and then win, be victorious in the battle, because it's about not just what we do, but that it should be in a revealed state, in a bright, shiny way. And it's then that we bring with that. Then we have the true holistic way of serving Hashem. Okay, and that is a lesson pattern now too. That even though for those going to Gimmel Tammuz, where it seems like that Gimmel Tammuz is not a time of darkness, like some may say, but it's a time when we are to focus on how to make things brighter and light and lighter in the illuminatory way, and lighter also, but be less heavy on us too, right? And be more uplifting. And that is mamish. That again, that to bring together our actions with our thought and speech, which is the way to shine our actions in a bright way. And this, just to come to sort of a summation and encapsulation, as we with our parsha, this is also connected with the very name of Korach and the name of our parsha. What's the name? It's Korach. Now, what is the word Korach? I'll show you on the screen.
Korach.
Right. But what are the three letters? Now, let me see if I can find where I have it. I mean, it's very simple. It's a kuf and a resh. Oh, here. All right.
You're not sharing it.
Yeah, I know. I just found it now. All right. See here, right? Kuf, resh, and chaf. Right? What do these three have in common, or not in common, but yes in common? Look at the letter below it. Hey. Right? So think of hey as the positive ideal letter. For example, right, like in the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, the hey of God's name. Also, we know that God created. Yeah, we say God created the world, the above world, the spiritual world, with a Yud, and our physical world with a hey. Hey, also, hey, in English it's the H. And think of hey like the word healthy, meaning hey means a healthy personality. What do we mean? There's three lines to the hey, right? There's the width on top, like the roof. That's the horizontal. Then you have the vertical going down. So, and one way to look at it is like the qualitative thing, the width of something, then the quantitative bringing it down from higher to lower. That's one way. There's another way, and this is brought down in Kabbalah, and Chassidus too, that of the three faculties of that we have as humans, like we spoke in during last week's parsha, that in addition to our soul imprint of the 10 characteristics of our soul, like the 10 sefirot, like from Chachma bin Adat, Netzach, Chasig, Tiferes, Netzach, and Yisod Malchus, we also have the three garments of our soul, like the filtration, so to speak, the RAM, so to speak, the CPU, right? The access to our souls, which is like which is thought, speech, and action. It's almost like the sense data input output to the soul. So again, thought, speech, and action. Now, thought and speech. So look at the hay. The roof of it represents thought. It's like in the head, the top, and that is like what's internal processing. Speech is like what draws out from our heads, but it's still connected to us. It's not still making any physical contact or really viscerally affecting the physical world external of us. What does do that is our third faculty, and that is action. And that is represented by the bottom left half line. And being that it's something with the external world, therefore there is the gap. Because it's representing that it is something external. Yet, and it also has a healthy opening of energy flowing through, right? Like we say the word matzah. The hay of matzah has that. It allows a release of energy. So too, we also say in Kabbalah, this represents the three worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, right? So there's a pasuk that says, which represents Satzilut, then Barasiv Yitzartiv, I created it, I formed it, that's B'Yitzir, Af Asisid. Also, I made it. And Af is in Kabbalah is like a separation. That's the division. Because to go to the outside world, it has to almost like we say, needs to go to a tzimtzum of form. Like to go and manifest fully from going from spiritual or psychic or even emotional realm into the tangible world. So that's it's a leap of reality almost. So that's why there's a separate. So that's it. So the healthy construct of us is a hay. Okay. Look at the three letters of Korach. You'll see these are unhealthy variations of the hay in the following way. The kuf is, here it's a little more fancy font, but the kuf is, envision it's like the two parts, like of the hay, the right and right, but then instead of a short line, the hay has a long line. It goes below, like the writing line. It's called lamatim in Ashur. And this in Kabbalah, the kuf represents negative. That means that this bottom left line, which represents action, goes to the lower realms, to the abyss, to the unhealthy, even negative pit. It like dangles down. That means our action is not fully in the healthy holy way. A also for holy, let's say. Okay. In fact, in the very word for this letter kuf in Hebrew also means monkey. Kuf also means monkey, and if you read like Hebrew, if you've seen Hebrew children's books, they usually show the kuf letter. And they show this like the tail of the monkey, the bottom left line, dangling down. Kabbalah, this is called the foot that goes down into death. That represents action that is misaligned. It's not doing things in the wrong way. Okay, and it's also one of the three letters of the word sheker, the false, which ein le raglayim, says doesn't have 2 feet. It only has 1 foot. It cannot stand on 1 foot, on 2 feet. It only has 1, and in that itself, imbalanced. Okay, let's go to the next letter, the reish of Korach. Reish of Korach is also, what is it? It's missing. There is no action. It's as if just thought and speech, and not giving any full representation. to action, or like, or meaning that that's in the wrong way too. In fact, also the resh is seen as a negative letter, not only because it's also from the word sheker, and it also because the resh, unlike the dalet, does not have the dot, the point of humility, of self-abnegation of a dalet. There's two words for you, that two letters that represent humility. The dalet, which is like the word dal, which means being a pauper or the other word is rush, reshin. There's also the word resh, the letter resh, word of thereof, which means also poor. But the rush is negative poor. It's impoverished of holiness. It says l'rush ein kol, has nothing to it. It's just like empty poverty. Whereas dal is sacred poverty. It's impoverished of negativity, and therefore being open and empty to be only to receive and have all holiness. In fact, the word also is related, dal is also related to, even in sometimes, because you lifted me up. It's like almost like you're empty enough so you're light enough to be lifted. So the resh is missing that yud to its right on its roof. It's supposed to give its sacredness. So this is negative poverty, being impoverished of the holy, meaning it's just negative thought and speech, and the action is missing altogether. Then comes the next letter, ches. The ches is that you have the speech and action, but then the left line of, speech and thought on the right, but then the left line of action is connected directly to the thought. That means there's a misalignment. There is no healthy filtration from thought and speech into action, but it's almost just like a total lizard brain into action, just, and therefore misbehaving, not directing our behavior in the right ways. Like we say also the difference between chametz and matzah, right? The matzah is a healthy hay, and chametz has the unhealthy ches, right? So as we see in the name Korach itself, there's three forms of unhealthy expression of action. And that's what is, again, the teaching. And it's ironic that Korach was claiming that it's all about just action, not about thought and speech. That we should just emphasize that what we all have in common is just behavior, action. To which Moshe's answer and our Parshat says no. Whatever way you want to splice it, whether as a kuf or a resh and a ches, it's still Korach's way of claiming that it's all about action itself will ultimately lead into one of these three unhealthy ways of action. And ultimately, we have to be the hay, like in the name Moshe as a hay. So too in the name Aharon, also as a hay. It means we got to be holy like a hay and be healthfully balanced like a hay. Okay? Hey. All right. So that is certainly great lesson there. And just to since we're on the ches and on Tammuz, we'll add two more things. Just straight, let's go to ches, right? So actually, we mentioned, like we went through like parts of last week on the significance of the month of Tammuz. We spoke about the feature of vision for the month, right? And if you remember, we spoke in detail on Reuven and the spies, which were scoping the land, vision, and other elements having to do with vision. Incidentally, we spoke about last week also the eyes that the leaders, the people, known as the eyes of the people, the Einei Ha'eda, again, about eyes. And according to Rizal, the body part for the month of Tammuz is eyes. And in fact, again, that's connected to what we were just speaking about earlier, that it doesn't suffice just to do something, but it has to be in an openly revealed way, a way that is visual, that is in a revealed visual way. And again, the sun being out like Joshua and being held up in the sky. And this is also connected to actually today of all days of the year, which is the summer solstice, which is when the sun is at its highest, most revealed state, that the sun is most shining and it's most in a state of open vision. And so like we say, when the sun emerges in its full strength. And this state of summer sun, sometimes it's seen as negative. It's like very powerful energies. In fact, on Tammuz, we mentioned last week, the name of the Akkadian god, which was also had to do with hot lead dripping out of the sockets of this idol. It also had to do, Tammuz, this god idol, had to do with fertility and growth. And the point is that at this time, once the cusp of solstice crosses, and things start decaying, like the height of summer is over, starting to go into winter. So people would start crying for the loss of growth and fertility and all that. So that too has to do with the eyes, and that's also connected to also that this month is the beginning of the mourning of the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. When we say "Eini, Eini Yerdamayim," our eyes weep and with tears. So the eyes have both qualities of both bringing out open and visual and holiness, revealing. It also manifests moroseness, but ultimately, and just like the doubleness of the eyes and crying, so too, it is to reveal, like we said earlier, that through the tears of sowing, we reap with tears of joy. Okay, and that's why next month, which is the time of actual destruction of the temple, is, as we'll see next month, is related to the month is related to the left eye. So, because that's what we need, two eyes not just to see the negative, but also to see the positive through things. So in our month, and the letter for our month is Ches. So we just said Ches has a negative connotation, it's true. And actually it's the first letter, both for the first time the letter Ches is in our Torah, is the word Choshech, and during creation, darkness, right? Now, as we'll see next month, the letter for the month of Av is Tes. If you put Ches, Tes, and those are the two main letters of the word Chet, sin. But if you look in the Torah, what's the first word that begins with the letter Tes? Is word Tov, good. And to add to that, what is the first word that begins with the letter Aleph? Is the word Elokim, God. And this goes to a great teaching from Baal Shem Tov himself, that the sin is the seat for good, for holiness. That sin in itself is not just for the negative, but there's a way to elevate and bring even sin into holiness. That the Aleph is the holy part, like we said, Okim, and the Ches and Tes, even though that is a sin, there's a way to elevate it. And that's the point, even though Tammuz is the time when it begins to the nadir of Jewish history, the darkness part of it, but ultimately, even in the sinful state, we could still elevate it into a holy state, okay? And that's the point, is how do we use our vision to see even in the darkness that there is light? That there's something and that's through the transformation of darkness that we get to even greater light. And to get a bit theological, philosophical, that there's two opinions. Is darkness just the absence of light, as they would say in fancy philosophy? The privation of light is darkness, or is darkness its own substance? And according to Kabbalah and Chassidus, we say the latter, that darkness is a substance. Therefore, when it's such a substance that could even be light from the darkness. And when we reveal and transform the light of the darkness, then we have even more light than we began. This is a longer discussion and subject, and it goes back to certain medieval opinions between Maimonides and Nachmanides, the Rambam and Ramban, and ways how do we see the messianic light to be revealed. But that's the point. Our point is to transform the ches into a hey, into the good way, or even more to the aleph of ched, right? And this too, and how do we do this? By, like we said earlier, to have a healthy alignment of our thought and speech with our action, and to realize it's not just about action, but it's also about the way we think and feel. And as I mentioned, this is connected to what if you remember, we learned last week with going back to the Chassidus. If you remember, we were learning about that what is greater, this study or action, right? And then we connected that with learning Torah or prayer. If we do it without the purest intentions, right? Shlo Lishma, then it could be like orphaned or widowed actions, right? That was a long Torah we learned last week. So that's related. That if you, again, in short, that the lesson of our parsha is that if you don't have the right kavanah in our Torah and prayer, then it is fast. It's killing. It's actually making the actions dead themselves. That we need, in order for there to be the right healthy alignment, right? To have that healthy alignment, we need not just the right action, but that our thoughts and speech too, and our kavanah and our feelings to be part of it and fully aligned. Okay. So that is mamish. That is mamish what we have in our parsha. I mean, there's more I was going to discuss about. Maybe it's getting late, so maybe we'll use it for next week. I was going to speak a little bit on also on our month, the zodiac of Cancer, what is both as a sign and how it's related to the condition, the medical condition known as cancer, and what does that mean? And there's actually a teaching from Lubavitcher Rebbe on that too. What does cancer mean? But not to get too macabre and all that. I think we'll continue on that next week. Okay. So because I just feel that we covered good ground here, and feels like we covered something wholesome. By the way, but just to end off with the end of our parsha, because at the end of this, the latter part of our parsha is after this blooming of Aaron's staff. It leads it just more or less Torah goes on, and the gift and the contributions of the people to the Levite and the Kohens in detail, whether it's truma or the tithing of Meiser or the Peter, Chamor Rechem, and Pidyon Ben, and redeeming the firstborn, etc., etc. Because the Torah is again saying that, again, to reinforce both ways, right? Because first, Moshe, right, we're responding to Korach. It's not just about the physicality of the physical world, like we learned from Meraglim, but we also need to infuse our actions, activity with the right thoughts and speech. But on the other hand, just, so to speak, again, we're going back to the other way too. We have to still manifest it in the physical world and bring it one. And that is by contributing physical produce and even animals to the Levite tribe, which they themselves are ironically the ones that do not own property, right? Because they represent the highest, the loftiest part. And that's what we're saying. Even these highest, loftiest people, even a Moshe Rabbeinu, who represents the highest, loftiest state, still has to be anchored in the physical world. Okay? All right. So there we are. Thank you for that part. And now let me just check in with everyone. How is everyone feeling? Just opening it up. If anyone has any either question or insight or anything they want on to add here, and also to check in if we could go and do a little bit on the Chassidus part also, continue on that in ways that also link to what we were learning. So just gauging how people, the pulse of us here, how people are feeling, or if we feel like want to niggo now.
Good. I liked what you were doing, and I'd like to hear about the month of Tammuz.
Okay, so we did. Well, we just did some of the month of Tammuz, which is again, right? In other words, okay, the options are, if everyone is just like really zonked out, we could just end, or ideally and better. I mean, I still got the mojo to go.
I was going to say, it depends how you're feeling. If you feel like you want to roll on, then
I got still more for at least I have at least another half hour in me. If and as long as we have at least one or two people that will have that too.
Well, yes. I'm definitely good.
Okay.
And I think probably so is Johnny, probably also.
Right. If you do want to hear a little bit more Tammuz, I do want to maybe save the cancer part for next week. Just don't want to get too, but I will add one more point to just the name of Gimmel Tammuz. Gimmel Tammuz 3. So Gimmel is a Gimmel. Gemayel. So Dalet is we spoke about before. What's the Dalet? We're in the 4th month. Tammuz is the 4th month. Dalim, as we spoke before, the Dalit means Dalim, like positive, healthy way of poverty, of healthy bittul, healthy self-abnegation, healthy nothingness, let's call it. The mile is to give, so it's a good dynamic that we have the Gimmel and Dalit together. Gemara says Gemel Dalim is a good pairing of giving to the poor. So too, it's a time when we're open, again, with the sun shining at its height, especially this year's calendar, the way it falls on the calendar. It's also solstice, that the sun is shining, and just to be the right, healthy receivers of it, and not to have the right suntan lotion on, wear the right but to allow the sun in and get all that good vitamin D, spiritual vitamin D from the source. Says that the essence of Hashem, represented by Yud Kei Vav Kei, is the sun, and then and the details, the conduit, the channels that God, essence of God, communicates, channels into our world is by the name Elokim, and that is the shield to the sun. And if there was no shield, then we would just be zapped. It would be like we were next to the sun, like you've seen the sci-fi movies when almost, or like Icarus. No, I was gonna say like a spaceship going too close to the sun, or like Icarus too close to the sun too. So the shield or filter and all that is necessary to be able to absorb the sun in the healthiest way. unfortunately, with global warming and all that, people, let's say in Texas, are really, or if you're in New Delhi or something, summer, it's like, it's unbearable. It's negative. So that's, I think, to find the ways to take even the spiritual, holy, meaning godly sun, in a way that that is like really could manifest, embody in us healthy. Again, like back to that, the miraculous way, be most embodied in us in our natural state. And there's numerous stories. For example, with the Rebbetzin, the Chabad Rebbe, who would daven with she would say Tehillim, but never, she didn't pronounce the Tehillim. She made mistakes, and I asked her. I see, and she would make mistakes. By the way, we spoke earlier about if we should say Good Yom Tov and Gimmel Tammuz or not, and we decided it's up to the feeling, emotion of the person. And we also explained that good Yom Tov is all related. Good is first of all, good is Tov, good, and Yom is day, which is a time of revelation, and it's also a time of light. Arki Tov is light. So if you have a way of not just being, but to be in a state of revealing, you're able to reveal how Gimmel Tammuz has a positive state to it, element. So then you could certainly say Good Yom Tov. Hi, brother Micah, Vivaldi. Well, you guys are Fabringing over there? What's good? Sort of. Okay, you know what? When we finish, I'll check in with you. Vivaldi. So the story is that the Rebbetzin, Tzedek, she would say her Tillim fagreist, as we say, misstating the words, so her oldest son, her second oldest son, the Maril, who became a Rebbe on his own, Yudolei, who's saying, they say, if you say, formally you say, I'm muting you because Esther, they don't want to hear any white noise. I did it. So that, if you may say the wrong words, they used to tell us when we were kids in Cheder, if you don't say the words of davening or Tehillim right, then you're making injured angels. The angels with broken wings, blindy eyes, and so on and so on. That's why I have to pronounce it correctly. So it's important to say it. So her son started chiding, telling her, "Mommy, you're not saying Tehillim right. You're misreading it." And so she got turned off, and she stopped saying her Tehillim that she would say every day. So when her husband, Maria's father, found out about that, that his Rebbetzin stopped saying. He saw it. She started saying Tehillim, and he said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, the delay is saying I'm saying it wrong, so I don't want to make mistakes in my Tehillim." So then the Tammuz called his son in, and he told him that your delay. He said, "This was wrong of you, not only because of kibbud of aim to honor your mother, but know that even all the misagreiste Tehillim, the misspoken stated Tehillim of your mother, that her kavanas were so high that it had such effects above, and that you closed the gates of all the greatness that she was accomplishing through her broken words of Tehillim. Her broken words of Tehillim were greater than all the perfect Tehillim of most people. And this goes back to what we were speaking about earlier, the teaching of Korach versus Moshe. How much kavanah is important, not just the action, even not just the words, but the kavanah. So I'll just share with you a short niggin to the niggin shamil, that but to the words of that maybe you merit to see with our Rebbe, whatever that Rebbe means to you, here down in this world, and to bring the Geula, the redemption, Mashiach. V'nizka ונזכה זנדיך ניתן werden. ונזכה זנדיך ניתן werden. Dalemata inaguf ulemata meyasarata ulemata meyasara efafim vehu yigalayino ulemata meyasara efafim vehu yigalayino. All right, thank you, everyone, and till next week. May Amish may to use and keep on shining. That's the lesson of Gimmel, the solstice, and Parshat Korach, as we learned, and Tammuz, and only the best of the best to everyone. And l'chaim, we all agree to that tonight's the night to say l'chaim. Thank you again, Jonathan.
Would say l'chaim u'lebracha.
Yes, and as the word lebracha means also leiv raka, with a soft heart. Okay. Love you all. Good Shabbos, Jonathan. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Rivka. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Ariel. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Steve Abozusha. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Danny. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Dana. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Johnny. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, everyone out in Facebook land. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, everyone in the whole wide world, including our alien thoughts. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Hashem. Good Shabbos. All right, so we're going out of Facebook. All right.
And whoever was Yoshev Rosh.
Yeah, and the Yoshev Rosh too, right?